session. I'm going to turn this over to our moderator for today, Travis Hurst, who is Coordinator for Academic Technology at Rose State College. So Travis, I'll hand it over to you, and you have the power to unmute, or if you would like me to do that, just let me know.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Kyle.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you joining me on a Friday morning to talk about a topic that I think is important to all of us, particularly in the online education field. And so give me just 1 second here to get my screen up and going. All right, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, so our topic today is online cheating. Who have you caught and how? And for today's topic, I'm doing this a little bit differently than how many of the other sessions have been run. I'm going to go through a couple of different scenarios that we've experienced here at Rose State, and then at the very end we're gonna talk about, because you all are actually my panelists for this. So we're going to talk about what different technologies and different policies and procedures you have changed at your institution, so we can all share those ideas and maybe help everybody get to a more robust academic honesty environment in the online testing world. So before we start, one thing that I would like to know you should see a poll pop up. I'm interested in whether or not you're using any type of online proctoring at your institution, and if you are, what are the products, tools that you're using? And on the second one, you'll notice some of you may use both. Which one do you primarily use? That's what we're wanting to know, is which one do you primarily use? And while that polling is going on, I'm going to go ahead and give you the agenda. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about this morning is I'm going to talk about 3 different instances of academic dishonesty that we encountered here, the product, tool, or policy that we used in order to catch that instance of academic dishonesty. And I'm going to talk about a recent learning experience, and I use learning experience in quotations because this was almost an error on our part. And so I want to talk about an issue that we found that we had never expected, that we almost accused a student of academic dishonesty before we had a better picture of what was actually going on. What products and services we use here, especially through what our department is called Academic Innovation, and what ones we encourage faculty and faculty to use for their online testing experiences. What changes to policy and procedures that we've made, and then the very end of this is going to be an open discussion. And so you all are the panelists that we're going to be having a discussion over what you've experienced at your institution and what changes you have made. And I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. So it looks like the vast majority of us are using some type of online proctoring. Respondus is the big one, and ProctorView coming in second. So before we move on to this next slide, I want to set the stage for what you're about to see. This is a video. I want to tell you right now that you might need to turn your you might need to turn your speakers up in order to hear everything that you're getting ready to hear on this video. This is actually from my class, the class that I teach, an Intro to Computers course. This was using Respondus Monitor and Lockdown Browser. And so this goes to show that we do catch people with these proctoring tools. Now, obviously I've hidden the student's face for privacy. I'm going to discuss what happened after the fact with this particular student. So bear in mind, this is my class, so my instructions on this on this test are they have to read the academic honesty statement into the camera. Once they've done that, then they are allowed to take the test. This student didn't realize that the camera never stops between the time you do the academic honesty statement and your verification and when the test actually starts. So that's a very good feature of this product, is that it's recording the entire time. And so you'll hear him refer to doing the environment scan. One of the things that's required in my exam and in most online proctored exams is an environment scan where they have to take the camera and pan it around the room in order to show that there's no other people or other documents that aren't allowed or things hidden on the ceiling. That's what he's talking about when he refers to the environment scan. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and it's about a 5-minute video, because this is really all important information you need to hear him share on this video.
It says, during this exam, you shouldn't access other resources, a phone, tablet, notebooks, etc., or communicate with other people. Please stay in your seat and focus on the computer screen until the exam is complete. If any interruption occurs, briefly explain what happened by speaking directly to your webcam. And finally, remember that you cannot exit the exam until all questions are completed. Okay. Great.
So when you pan around, you're going to say, okay.
I already panned around. I already did the environment check.
So now you can start.
Whenever I hit begin exam, yeah.
Okay, so I can use it.
Yep.
She just asked him how to do a search on a laptop.
I'm going to try to see if I can take up on a couple of the words that you said.
Well, if I don't know it, I'll probably just read the question out loud.
Yeah.
And then just type like a couple words that should pop up.
Okay.
And then what are you going to do with the answers?
Be able to see in your periphery. Okay, come on.
You should put them on the floor. Because it looks weird if I'm going,
That's why I think.
or if I like look down.
That's what I'm
It looks like I'm thinking if I just look down.
That's why I kind of
On my periphery?
yeah. Like right now, if you're looking at it like that, you can tell, hey.
Mom, your periphery is not that detail oriented. I can see that you're moving. I can't see I can't see when you hold your arm out which one you're touching right now, looking at this stuff.
Yes, that was his mom, and that is what she's going to touch for each answer.
So,
I'm not going to be able to get up and get to the floor and have the chair freaking making noises. So feet fall. Just for chairs, I'm going to go like this in the chair. Let it see. Yeah. Go like this. And what?
A, just reach over and touch this.
Basket.
Yeah. Yes. I'll remember that that's me. Wait, A is the basket and C is the chair? What are you going to do with the basket?
My hand goes over like that. my hands up here, my hands here.
All right.
So that was a student and his mother on video talking about what pieces of furniture she was going to touch in the room in order to let him know what the answer was to each question. The system they devised was if he didn't know it, he would just read it out loud. She would use the electronic book on a laptop, Control F, and search for the keywords that he was looking for, and then touch, whether it was the basket, the nightstand, or the bed, or one other piece of furniture that was somewhat indiscernible when she was talking, for the answer. When this occurred, at first I could not believe that I had just, first of all, got this on video. This was recorded. I was dumbfounded. It was also very, very frustrating to hear an adult, a parent, after he had read the academic honesty statement, talk about, okay, are you done with that so that I can come in? The end of this story is when he got the grade that he received, they came in to protest the grade, and we were able to show them this video. Obviously I can't tell everything that happened after that, but needless to say, there were some pretty severe consequences for this. So this is one of those examples of these products do work, and in this case, Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor, we were able to catch this particular student in a very, very egregious and very obvious cheating issue. Now, there are more subtle ways that students cheat. This just happened to be very overt and very easy to catch. This was one tool that we've used. Another tool that we have some instructors use is ProctorView, and many of you are aware that ProctorView offers many different products. And I want to also comment that the products you hear me talking about today are in no means endorsed by myself or by my institution. These are just the ones that we are currently using. There's many others out there that do a great job. These are just the ones we're currently using. So we had an instructor who gave an exam to a student using ProctorView. ProctorView, the difference between ProctorView and Respondus Monitor, for some of you who might not be aware, is that ProctorView uses a live monitor. They are actually monitoring the student in this instance real time, whereas Respondus Monitor, it uses a camera and just records it, and you as the instructor view it after the fact. So this student started the exam. They passed the room scan, and so the monitor, the proctor on the other end of the camera asked the student to do an environment scan. The student passed the room scan. However, the student's back was to the wall, and there was a doorway or a door behind the computer, and that door was open. We noticed that when the instructor asked us to examine this, because she thought there was something weird with the student's score, and there was just too many odd things about it, about answers that she gave that were exact matches to other sources. So when the student was answering her essay questions, we noticed that she was looking slightly down and to her right. However, when they did the environment scan, the scratch paper, which was allowed, was on her left side, and there was no indication of that student moving that paper. And so as we examined the video closer and closer, we started looking at her eye movements. We couldn't hear sound because she had managed to take her microphone way down. And so there was also a lot of scratching that she was doing. And our assumption was that she was scratching on a book bag or some type of piece of fabric in order to hide the sounds of motion behind the computer. So when her head is facing the camera, her eyes are shifting down, then back up. Like we said, the scratch paper was allowed, but it was on her left side. When she started writing, she was writing on paper that was on the right side and was not present in that room scan. When we brought the student in and asked her these questions, she did admit to somebody coming in to the room after the room scan, and she was scratching because she was reading the questions aloud. They were typing it in and then giving her the feedback. And what she did is she essentially, her first response actually was to claim that she just had a near photographic memory, and that her responses that she was putting down were just because she had just read these Wikipedia articles on that topic. But once we brought the video in and showed her the different pieces of evidence, she did admit that somebody came in behind the computer after the exam had started and had given her those answers as she was reading them aloud. They had looked them up so that she could see it and then handed it to her on that paper. So ProctorView actually, their monitor missed this. We didn't catch this until we were trying to figure out how her answers were so exact to Wikipedia and a couple of other sources. This happened to be, if this student had changed that answer enough, it wasn't exact, and it wasn't some of the same material that the instructor had handed out and verbatim from that material, we probably honestly would have missed this one, which is somewhat concerning. But we've had conversations with ProctorView about changing some of their protocols in terms of how they do testing in the room scan, and asking students to do additional room scans after the test has started. Another one that we've used, and this is not actually a system, this is actually a protocol. Our learning management system records the IP addresses for people who use the quizzing tool. So if you log on to our learning management system, it logs your IP when you log on. And when you start taking a quiz in that learning management system, it logs the IP address for where you're taking the quiz from. In one of our online classes, an instructor gave the exam. The students were actually not proctored in that they weren't required to be on video, but the exam did have the instructions of you are not to use open books, open notes, or other people. Well, when examining that IP address, we found that that student had logged in nearly simultaneously from an IP in Oklahoma and an IP in the Philippines. So jet travel is not that fast. We knew that there was some issue with where the student was logging in from in both places. In this case, the instructor would have never actually known about this until the student came in and complained about their test score. And the instructor, when he went in to look at the score, just happened to click on the view IP addresses link and noticed that that number, and he's somebody who was familiar enough with computer technology to know that that was not an IP address from somebody who lives around here. Just happened to check the IP address, happened to go look it up, and looked at his login time for the system and for the exam. And after that happened, we pulled the student in because we had an IP address of nearly simultaneous login and exam from two different locations. And the student, when presented with that evidence, did admit to paying somebody in the Philippines to take their course for them. Now, again, there were some pretty severe punitive punishments in place for that. This is obviously another example of some pretty egregious academic dishonesty. The first one we caught because he was unaware of how the system worked, and we actually got a little bit lucky on all three of these. But the last two, it really was not just the system that we were using. This was also a function of instructor diligence. And so that's the other thing that I want to talk about, is that it's not just the system. You can't rely entirely on just whether it's ProctorView or Respondus Monitor or whatever software or service you're paying for. There also is that piece of instructor diligence on going back and viewing that material, going and checking those videos, and not just relying on if you're paying for live proctoring. If you see some anomalies that you're not sure of, go in and ask questions. That's what we have found, is that most of these companies, they don't want to lose business. They're very eager to work out ways that, and it's part of their business model also, is trying to figure out ways that students are cheating. And so it's actually a pretty symbiotic relationship there. So this is that example of the LMS IP. And if we look at a student and their quiz, we can see what time they moved from page 1 to page 2, and we can see the IP address. And obviously, I've hidden some of this for privacy issues. This is our we're not going to call it a near miss. We're going to call it a learning experience. We had an instructor come in who knew about the IP address issue, came in and was concerned because the student's IP address was showing up in Albania. Normally, any time your IP address is showing up in a different country, that is a big red flag for us. And so we were in the process of getting ready to fill out paperwork on the student when we decided to ask some additional questions. The reason this student almost got accused of cheating is they were using a virtual private network, a VPN. The student was in the military, had been stationed in Eastern Europe, and had found a show that was only available on Eastern European Netflix. And so he was using that VPN in order to access that Europe version, the European version of Netflix, so that he could watch this show. And he had forgot to get out of his VPN before he logged into the LMS to take his quiz. So that LMS IP is a good thing, but you have to be very careful about using it, and you need to make sure that you bring students in, sit them down, and ask them questions about where they're taking their tests, about their computer habits. We almost accused a student of cheating when they actually didn't. And so we use this as a teaching. Obviously, we use the first video as a teaching and training model. But we also use this in that what we did is we brought the student in and we said, is there a reason that you would show up in Albania, being logged in from Albania or a foreign country? And he said, oh my gosh, I forgot to turn off my VPN. I watched this, and he was able to explain it. And it really, it made sense. And so in this case, could he have been cheating? Yes. But the odds are when we asked him about it and he was able to describe what it was, he even showed us, he had his laptop and took us through how he logs in. And so in this case, we used it as for our purposes to train and say, just because the LMS shows that IP, be very careful before you accuse that student. Let's bring them in and have a conversation with them. So at Rose State, these are the products that we have tried or tested, and some of them that we use. Some of you might be familiar with UCard by ProctorView. UCard uses keystroke logging and keystroke analytics. We've tried this with several classes. We actually liked the way it worked. For us, though, we were trying to avoid any additional fees for students, and we didn't feel like at the time that it was a good time to roll out that particular product. ProctorView live monitoring, that is an option for students. On our campus, we have ProctorView is the big one. It's the one that most instructors tend to use, and it is available for students who choose to use it. And I'll talk about that when I talk about our changes in policy and procedures. ProctorView has some new products that are out. We have not tested those. We're not really in the market to get into new testing yet. Probably next summer or probably next fall, we will start looking at those new ProctorView products to see how they are different than what we're using now. And then we use Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor. We only have 200 monitor seats, and those are reserved for certain faculty and certain programs. Obviously, one of those programs is mine or one of those classes is mine because I need to make sure the product works. But we use Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor. Lockdown Browser is available for all of our faculty. Monitor is only for 200 students. And those as the semester ends, those seats come back open. And so we have a lot more people who get to use it in the summer as opposed to our spring and fall semesters. Lockdown browser, we're starting to get away from unless you're using Monitor, because a lockdown browser is not as effective in a non-proctored environment, and we're finding a lot of faculty who don't know how to set lockdown browser up correctly. And a lot of our troubleshooting with Respondus lockdown browser is faculty settings on the browser, on lockdown browser, and not necessarily Monitor. So what have we had to change in our policies and recommendations? One of these is we recommend and we strongly encourage every faculty member that is going to use an online proctoring system to institute a back to the door policy on their video. We recommend faculty tell students that they need to be in a room that has one entrance, and that when they take that exam, that they take it in such a way that their back is to the door, so that that door can always be monitored. You'll notice that in the room that I'm in right now, this is the type of environment that we encourage. If you saw my video at the beginning, I know that you don't see it right now, but the back is to the door. And so if there was somebody that came in, it would be obvious, and even those scratching noises that students were trying to make in order to cover up the background noise wouldn't hide that person coming in. The other thing that we have changed is students do have options. Our online courses offer free test proctoring on campus in the Rose State College Testing Center. If you are going to use a proctored environment, we tell faculty, and it's not an official policy yet, but we hope that it will be soon, you have to offer that free test proctoring on campus. You can't force them to use ProctorView, because that is an additional cost to the student. We will be hopefully changing some policies to look at a student knows beforehand, before they come into a class, when that class requires ProctorView. So for example, if a student is out of state and there's no way they're going to test on our campus, that ProctorView, they know they have to use it. So that way we're upfront about those costs to the students, because ProctorView does cost, and there are different costs based on how long the test is and how long a lead time they give ProctorView. We've also stopped allowing non-educational institutions to proctor in-person tests. So if you're in an online class and you have to take through because of an accommodation or some other technical issue, sometimes we have people who are stationed overseas who are not allowed access for brief periods of time to communications for various reasons. We sometimes have to break this recommendation, but for the most part, we're only allowing educational institutions to do in-person proctoring if it's not ProctorView, or if it's not through Respondus Respondus lockdown browser and Monitor. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to open this up for conversations from the rest of you about what you've experienced on your campus, ways that you have changed policies, or things that you have done to try to stem the tide of student misconduct when it comes to online testing and learning. And if you would, please tell who you are and where you're from when you comment.
I'm from Northeastern State University, and I'm an English teacher. So some of the cheating that I deal with is more along the lines of catching students actually plagiarizing, though I've had the same issue where last semester I know that a student is paying somebody else to actually take the course for them. Mostly we caught them because they were stupid enough that they kept submitting essays with the wrong student name on it. You know, they forgot to take the name of the student who was taking the class for them off of the paper. But a lot of what I'm seeing is that on NSU campus, we have Blackboard, so we use Safe Assign, which is a plagiarism program. And then I also teach online for Barton Community College in Kansas. They use Canvas, and so they use Turnitin. And what I'm seeing with both of those programs is that it's not really catching the majority of plagiarism that is taking place amongst students, because not everybody is on board with making their students submit their papers and submit every single paper through these two programs. So, you know, I will see repeat papers, not because I have caught them through Turnitin or Safe Assign, but simply because I have a copy of the paper from a previous semester from a different student.
That's a great point. We use Turnitin here at Rose, and we have just recently started hearing those same comments from faculty in our English and humanities, and almost any humanities that has a lot of writing, that Turnitin is not catching papers that they are fairly certain are plagiarized at the rate that it should. Now, we still are catching them, but you're right, because faculty don't require everybody to turn those in. That is where the student-to-student cheating is sometimes missed. That, I think, is going to be dealt with at the program or division level or college level, not necessarily the whole institution, but mandating some policy that if you have certain writing assignments, they have to go through your plagiarism detector. I think that's how most institutions are going to have to try to deal with that in the future.
Well, if nobody else is going to talk, I'm going to mention something else then too. So another thing that I have noticed, and this is with my online course through Barton Community College, there are a lot of international students who will take these courses online. Composition and Comp 2 is particularly what I'm talking about. And I am seeing a lot of papers over the exact same topics. And I mean, these are superb, polished, nearly perfect papers. When I compare that to any of the daily writings that I make them do on the spur of the moment, with their email communications, anything like that, there is a huge discrepancy in the level of acumen when it comes to using the English language in writing. I am deeply suspicious at this point that a lot of these are pre-written essays that they have developed while passing their English as a second language courses, their TESOL or their TOEFL or whatever it is that they happen to be taking. And I was just curious, is anybody else noticing this trend?
This is Marcy from Southwestern. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got an email from my Turnitin rep that said they are working on, and it's just in beta, something called Authorship Investigation. And that is supposed to investigate if the papers have been purchased or if somebody else has done it. So from what she explained was that at the very beginning of the semester, you have your students write a paper in class or right then. It's maybe on, some topic that, their personal life or something like that. I don't know. But it looks at the grammar, it looks at the punctuation, it looks at all of the little pieces in how you write the paper. And then later on, as you submit the papers, it will compare those other papers to the original one. And it will see if it has been purchased or not. They're also doing one on code checking for computer science. And that should be possible. It's in beta now, and it should be out possibly this fall. But I thought the authorship investigation was quite interesting I don't have any more information other than that.
Thank you for sharing that. That is two things that I'm personally excited about coming out. I know that we offer a lot of computer science classes, and that's always a concern is, are you actually writing your own code? And obviously the authorship checker will be a great tool. I know that we'll roll it out as soon as it comes out in a non-beta version. Somebody had mentioned about students purchasing coursework, and I taught at another institution that had a great deal of their material was you taught what they gave you. And there used to be a website called Student of Fortune, and we caught several students who had just purchased their material off of that website, Student of Fortune, and didn't even bother changing the person's name on the paper, and would just submit it as their own. So yes, that idea of people selling coursework is not new. It's been around basically as long as we've had online classes. And that is another form of online cheating that's getting harder and harder to detect, because people aren't as blatant as they used to be with, say, putting out a website that just says Student of Fortune, which is, easy to go and catch. There are so many different ways and avenues for people to communicate now and back channel to get that material. And it's, for some students, it's a very nice little profit that they're turning. Does anybody have any official policies that they have in place that they would like to share for their institution when it comes to online proctoring? For example, if you have an online class that you must use this product, or these are the policies, or these are the protocols that a student has to go through. This is a very quiet group.
Well, this is Marcy again. We don't require the faculty to do anything. They can do it if they so choose. A lot of them do. But we make it available for them to use if they so choose to use it. And we just use Respondus. We don't use ProctorView.
I think that's probably how most of us are. Does anybody require a particular? We actually don't require it. We offer it as an option to the faculty and to the students, but we don't require anything here yet.
So Tiffany says that within certain departments at her institution, it's required for faculty to use Respondus, but it's not required university-wide.
Kyle, I don't have anything else. I'd like to thank everyone for logging on this morning, and for those of you who shared. I really appreciate it. If you have any other questions about what we do, obviously we'd be more than happy to share what we're doing at Rose State. I'm going to type my contact information into the chat, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I think, if you look on the bright side, at least students are engaging in creative practices. So thank you again, Travis, for this. And everybody have a great weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget, we have another week of great presentations like this one. So check the schedule online at onlineexcellence.onenet.net. Today at 1 p.m. is the in-person meetup at Eastern Oklahoma State College in Wilburton. If anybody happens to attend that, we would love to see some pictures or videos or something on Facebook and the group. And if you're available to make it, I think it's going to be a great event. So once again, thanks, Travis, and everyone for joining us, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks, everyone.